What you're about to hear has never been released until now. This episode is part of our exclusive Vault series, a limited release of live recordings that have been curated with care and reserved for this exclusive unveiling. I'm joined by my husband, Sunny, and we're bringing you stories packed with insight, heart, and energy. We're thrilled to offer you a front row seat to these powerful conversations.
Have you heard of these Stanley cups? They're called Stanleys, but the Stanley, the big 40 ounce, or $44.99 for a reusable water mug. But our daughters are like dying because everybody has a Stanley. We're like, we're not buying a 45 water bottle.
That you're gonna lose tomorrow.
That you already have you already have like 40 of these like disposable steel things all around, right? But it's not a Stanley, the little lid or the little sippy thing. So they're not getting a Stanley, but we're taking a 6-week trip this summer to Europe, which is kind of like a big,
Stanley.
Big Stanley.
That's a good trade-off.
Yeah. So we
Y'all want to adopt us?
Yeah,
We'll take that.
So we will double down and invest hard on the experiences, but draw a fine line. Like some of these, just too much. You don't need that. It's not necessary. Like their Christmas list is just like, you don't need that. You don't need that. You don't really need any of this, honestly. But we'll get you some of it. But it's just all like a little bit unnecessary. But we really try to set ourselves up for giving them things they'll remember, not things that they can hold and keep.
Welcome to Empowered Living. I'm Ann Sheu. On this podcast, innovative leaders and visionary experts share insights and practical tools for work, family, and marriage. Each episode, we'll explore how to elevate your life while staying grounded in what truly matters to you. You're working hard to navigate relationships, build a thriving family, and create a legacy of purpose. We're here to help you do that with confidence and intentionality. Welcome to this episode of Empowered Living. Today, our guests are Lisa and Jimmy Tran. I've known Lisa and Jimmy for over 20 years. I've known them since college, so super excited to bring this episode to you guys because they are a wealth of relationship and civic engagement and parenting knowledge. And so I'm super excited to bring you guys Lisa and Jimmy Tran.
Yeah, and we covered how they put their focus on each other and that the family starts with each other. We cover how they set up their kids for success.
And what it takes to raise resilient, grounded kids.
Yeah, and then just taking one-on-one time for themselves and their kids and how they go about like their thought process behind it. Mm-hmm. And then just how to balance their ambitions with their family life.
Yeah, and also they've been together for almost 20 years, and what has it taken to make sure that they're growing together and not growing apart as each individual matures. And then one of my favorite parts was talking about what they're doing to make sure that they're raising kids that want to be friends with each other when they're adults. That's super important to me. So it was fascinating to hear what Lisa's parents have done to help cultivate that sibling friendship, and now what they're doing in their own kids.
Enjoy.
Welcome to Empowered Living. This week we have Lisa and Jimmy with us. Hi, Lisa, Jimmy. How are you guys doing?
Good afternoon.
Great.
Yeah, so excited to have you guys here with us today.
Likewise.
So I know you guys have been together since college. I want to hear about how you guys have been intentional about growing together and not growing apart as you guys have matured over the years.
When do you start?
Would you like me to start?
Yeah.
Well, I think that when we went through pre-Cana, which is marriage prep for Christians, specifically Catholics, I remember that there was a triangle analogy where over time, as we're happen to be spiritual, and that's an element of our personal lives, but as you kind of grow more spiritual and towards a higher being, you also grow closer together. And I think that I don't think we've been perfect, but I feel like we have been intentional through different phases to try to continue to work on it and continue to learn from each other, to grow, to invest in the relationship. I mean, we just, short plug, we participated in the Know Thyself initial workshop, and just, investing and just working at it, and even small things like coffee dates. We had one just last week, and trying to break off time to invest and continue to grow as individuals and as a couple. And, now that we have 3 kids and fast forward to almost 17 years anniversary coming up, we have learned that it's just a continual investment. And if you're not, using a plant analogy too, repotting, investing, and continuing to just put effort into it, I think it can become stagnant. So what would you like to say? What?
Yeah, I mean, going back to what Jimmy was mentioning about pre-Cana, there was a sweet couple. I think they were married for maybe close to 50 years. And, I just remember their advice was, remember that the family starts with each other. It does not start from the day that you have your first child. And so that's kind of the approach that we always go back to, because, when I think about, marriages that don't last, or ones that are going through, we don't have a perfect marriage in any way, shape, or form, but we always go back to, you're my family, one of these days. And we're trying to raise our children to be self-sufficient and also model, good, strong relationships. And how are we going to do that if we don't start with the two of us? So these intentional ways, the coffee dates, and, it's small, or even walks. We take daily walks together, and just the two of us, and it could be 20 minutes. Sometimes it could be longer, but doing those little things, it's like the reps that you put in that have a lasting impact. So I think that would be one. The other one would be, we have different phases. We've been together, even though we've been married 17 years, we've been together for over half of our lives, over 22 years. And so, when you're dating, it's one phase of your relationship. And then
The honeymoon phase.
Yeah, right.
It's a very short phase.
very short phase when it's just the two of us. And so, we look, now it's reflection, right? So our lives have really gone through chunks of 5 years. So we dated for 5 years before we got married. We were married for 5 years before we had our first child. And, we were reflecting on this. It wasn't intentional. But the intentionality, even by happenstance, was we wanted to grow that strong foundation with the two of us. And, obviously we were blessed with the timing that we wanted was also the timing that God wanted for us to start a family. And I understand that that's not always the case. And, we're very blessed with that. And a lot of the reluctance, at least on my part, I won't speak for Jimmy, of starting a quote unquote family with children was, we love to travel. We love the time with the two of us. One major life change and decision, I know that we're going to get into this part, but, life transition was, I've never lived away from my family, never lived away from Dallas. And he got into graduate school, and I was like, do I move to Boston to be with you as a married couple, or do I stay here because I just got promoted in my current job? I was afraid that if I left that, will I be able to come back at that same level? But we took that jump together. Because, again, going back to the family starts with the two of us. So I think, over the 22 years that we've been together as a couple, dating over the marriage, we always try to go back to that. We are each other's family.
That's beautiful. I love that. When I feel like you guys are very involved in Dallas, and sometimes, it might seem like there's a lot of eyes on you guys. And especially in Dallas, there's this keeping up with the Joneses that can kind of happen. So and what I've really admired about you guys is how you've been able to stay so grounded in who you guys are. So what's your secret to not let all of that noise, that keeping up with the Joneses energy affect you guys as individuals and as parents?
We talk about that a lot, actually, because I feel like even going to SMU and being in Dallas, which tends to be a little bit more of a showy city, if you will, you can easily get caught up in what we kind of consider extrinsic motivators, right? And okay, if you get a $1 million house, well, then it's $2 million house, then it's a $4 million house. It's just nonstop. And what we have been, not perfect, but what we have really been cognizant of is sort of, what do we want? What's intrinsically, not ignoring the outside. And I think it's a huge challenge because we tend to measure by the extrinsic yardstick, financially or otherwise, and even the schools our kids go to and kind of car, it just tends to be driven by the outside. But what I think we've learned is that as soon as you yield that control to social media or whatever it is, you no longer control the outcome, because people will then keep increasing the standard or change it up on you, or it may not even be what you want, but you're trying to strive towards what you think others want. And then you're trapped, like the analogy of the treadmill, which is that they keep changing the speed on you, and you just keep running, and then you can't lose control. Pretty soon you fall off or whatnot. So we have tried to ignore it the best we can. And also, I think some of it's driven by your own family and what they may want for you or for your kids, but it may not be what you or your family unit really desires or needs. Yeah. And personally, that was, we made a tough decision to pull our kids out of private school and put them into public school. And we live in Dallas ISD, right? Yeah. Which a lot of people would, look at us like we have a third head. I mean, like literally, because that is just not, and we live in an urban area, right in the middle, kind of in the middle of the city. So stuff like that, I think you have to be, for us, a little contrarian and try to block out the noise and just talk within our family unit. What do we desire? What do we want? And how do we achieve that without too much influence from the outside? Yeah. So that's how we've tried.
Yeah, and I would double tap on his last comment around, making decisions that we value, going back to what we value. And I just remember, as we were making that decision of taking our kids from private and transitioning over to public, Jimmy reminded me that we are children's parents. Nobody else is. We are. Yeah. And we have the privilege of choice. So whatever choice we make is not permanent. Yeah. And we have that ability to transition over time, reassess what makes sense for our family, but going back to, we already have more than we ever deserve. But there are times where you have to pivot because of your life circumstances at that specific time. And we felt like our life circumstances right now allows us the freedom to make choices that may seem impossible to make at that time. And then now we reflect on it, 4 academic years later, it was the best decision that we could have made. And it wasn't until we invested in the time and energy in talking to each other on what we value. And again, making this decision together. We visited schools separately, and then we would come back and chat about it. And then, and we'll go into how our backgrounds and our upbringing, maybe at face value seems very similar to people who see us maybe on social media or professionally in other areas, but people who really know us, we grew up very differently, very differently. And I think that is a very key part of that yin and yang, where I would have never considered public school if it wasn't for us getting married and then seeing the successes and, again, taking away those stereotypes of, public school. I mean, y'all went to an amazing public school and you're public school educated. But that was not the upbringing that I came from. Right? So I think going back to what we value as a couple and going back to the values again, it's values, individual values, and how do you value that over time as a family in making some of these decisions that may seem impossible at the time.
So what were the values that kind of led you to that decision to pull them from private, put them in public?
Sure. I think that, we're centered around, I think, developing grit in trying to develop grit in our kids and giving them enough, but not too much. And I think it's so easy because you want more for your kids and, and you want to try to provide everything to them. But in our experience, there can be you can cross the tipping point, right? Where Warren Buffett has this analogy where he says, well, I want to give my kids enough that they can be anything, but not too much that they can be nothing. You know what I mean?
Yeah. So how do you know what that line is, though?
I know, and it varies. And it's not black and white, I think. It is certainly gray. But for us, we wanted them to develop grit. We wanted them to kind of figure out, kind of see the world in its real shape and color and tone, and not be so cocooned where, a lot of private environments, it's a very specific subset of folks, right? And that's not reality. And the walls are kind of manicured in such a way And we went to a private, college too. It's very, it's very particular. And so we were like, well, that may not be the best environment to succeed in life, is being so sheltered, if you will. And so we had that discussion. We had a discussion around, if you really study a kid's outcomes, often it's based on the parents' educational attainment, maybe their income level, maybe their zip code, a lot of other things. It's not necessarily the school they go to, so our kids, by nature of us being together and both working for a living, different things, both having gone to college, they already have a lot going for them. And to use a poker analogy, it's like my friend said, if you actually look at the data, if there's 10 chips, they've probably got 8 chips already. So you want to give them that extra chip and a half with the school, or you're like kind of give them a little challenge, spice it up a little bit. So, and we thought it wasn't a permanent decision. Maybe though, you can reassess. Every child's different. You can make a different decision for each child. But we said, hey, let's give it a shot. And another thing, which I know you guys are also passionate about, is sort of the financial burden that it might take for 12 years of schooling times 3. And also it's that, but also a little bit of the keeping up with the Joneses, because for most of these schools, it's not just the cost of tuition. It's usually on top of that, all of the fundraisers and just being around the environment. And it just creates a whole new outlook. And we have tons of friends that send their kids to private school. So nothing against that, but it's a different environment, different social pattern, different pressure. So we just said, hey, we already kind of have that environment in many ways, just through the circles that we somewhat find ourselves in. Let's get into a totally different circle.
Thinking about that line, like we were talking earlier, like how do you know you've given too much, or how do you know you need to like pull back a little bit? Like what are the signs that you guys look for in your kids, or like is there an assessment that you guys are doing? Like how do you know when you've given too much and that they're, you need to do something to like help them stay a little more grounded, or maybe you need to give them a little more? Like where's that balance?
I think the most concrete example that we're living in right now is helping our kids too much with their school. And, y'all know, I'm pursuing my doctorate right now. I'm working on my dissertation. I really don't have time to micromanage their homework, who's doing what, are they keeping up with their schoolwork and studying. So what we tell our kids, and I remind them every single day, we will always be there as a resource for you, but this is you going through school. This is not mommy and daddy going through school. So you are responsible for knowing what's due, when it's due, and if you hit a roadblock, you need to come and talk to mommy and daddy. So that gives them the opportunity to take ownership in their learning, because I don't have the time or the energy to do it. And honestly, the patience. So it's a bit selfish. But I also think about it because I work at a university, right? So I see students who are quote unquote adults, but they haven't learned how to be resilient because their parents have been overly involved in their schooling and their learning, and they haven't failed before. Why not give them that latitude to learn, okay, you know what? You didn't do as well on that test and you're in 6th grade. Let's focus on the learning at 11 years old in 6th grade and 4th grade and 2nd grade, versus fast forward to freshman year of college and you don't have your mom or your dad or someone who's helping you with your whatever project. You don't know what are the roadblocks, so that's a concrete example. All 3 of our children are very different. Our eldest, she's the one that could literally go to college today and I feel like she would be fine. Where our youngest,
typical older child, right?
Exactly.
And I think a lot of that may have to do with birth order. And then our youngest, an example, Sunday evening, Jordan, I got a message saying that you have a test on Monday. This is how hands off we are, because we want to empower them to be like, oh, I need to plan my weekend and when I need to study. And he's like, oh no, I do have a test. It's 20 minutes before bedtime. So we don't have it down perfect. But we said, okay, you have 20 minutes. what type of studying can you get done within 20 minutes? And so that's when we'll get involved and be like, okay, there's consequences. And the consequence may be you're going to fail this text tomorrow. You're not staying up all night. I'm sorry, you're a second grader. But
cram it.
Cram it. So that's an example of how we try to parent around and create these expectations with the opportunity for them to fail, but fail safely at a younger age. Hopefully that answers your question.
Yeah, I love that. One thing that, go ahead.
Yes, I wanted to say, one of my graduate professors had this whole concept of a leadership crucible, and you can apply that in business too, like the failures. And I feel like there's a lot of growth that comes through sort of that that failure, that crucible, and some of it's personal. You go through a health scare or something really traumatic, intense in your life, but there tends to be a period of growth afterwards. And I think as parents, we just strive so hard not to let our kids fail that we're depriving them of that benefit of growth, the gift. And they'll literally go through life maybe until they're 22, they've already gone to college, they've never had a tough period of failure and growth that comes afterwards. So that's something we think about and, try. It's so hard. You sit on the sidelines, just see it happening. It's like a slow moving train wreck, right? But you're like, gotta just resist and you gotta hold each other back. And then another, just on the point of the kids and the fine line, we really try to invest in experiences. And I know there's been a lot of research about that and everything. It's just a little example, but have you heard of these Stanley cups? They're called Stanleys, but the Stanley, the big 40 ounce, or $44.99 for a reusable water mug. But our daughters are like dying because everybody has a Stanley. We're like, we're not buying a 45 water bottle.
You're gonna lose tomorrow.
That you already have you already have like 40 of these like disposable steel things all around, right? But it's not a Stanley, the little lid or the little sippy thing. So they're not getting a Stanley, but we're taking a 6-week trip this summer to Europe, which is kind of like a big,
Stanley.
Big Stanley.
That's a good trade-off.
So we
you want to adopt us? We'll
right?
take that.
So we will double down and invest hard on the experiences, but draw a fine line. Like some of these, just too much. You don't need that. It's not necessary. Like their Christmas list is just like, you don't need that. You don't need that. You don't really need any of this, honestly. But we'll get you some of it. But it's just all like a little bit unnecessary. But we really try to set ourselves up for giving them things they'll remember, not things that they can hold and keep.
Yeah. So with 3 kids, what are you guys doing to make sure that they get some sort of like one-on-one time and like kind of not like one of my concerns since we have 3 is like, is our middle child going to get like lost in the mix, and like forgotten about? Like what do you guys do to make sure that each child is getting like the attention that they need?
Yeah, well, we can start with the big things and then the little things. I think the big thing, when we were on our honeymoon.
Where'd y'all go?
We went to Africa.
Nice.
So we went to Kenya, Tanzania, South Africa.
Zanzibar,
Zanzibar. And so specifically in Zanzibar, we ran into a father-son on a trip to Zanzibar, like a scuba trip. And this boy had to have been barely 10, if even 10.
That's so cool.
Like 8 or 9,
Whoa. So Jimmy has this we have a conversation with them. Oh yeah, I have 3 children. And, for their 10th birthday, we say,
we have a friend that does.
You can do your research, pick wherever in the world you want to go, but you have to do your research and justify why we should go on this trip. And so that really resonated with us because he was in business school at that time. He was about to go back to a crazy job. And then, I was about to go into grad school. And so we're like, okay, we're going to put a pin in that. In the future, we want to do that same thing if we're blessed with children, but obviously not at that level. I'm sorry. You're not going to Zanzibar when you're 10 years old without like the whole family. So we picked ages though. So Jimmy is a lot more adventurous than me. He was like, okay, for their 7th birthday, I'm going to take each one of them on a one-on-one trip.
Somewhere.
Nice.
Like
somewhere.
Overnight.
Yeah, overnight. Yeah. And then for me, I picked 10 because I was like, the kid has to be able to hold their own. I don't want them in a full-on car, 5-point car seat with all their stuff. And so, that's one thing that they can look forward to on their 10th birthday is, mommy child trip.
Yeah.
And then for their 7th birthday, it would be daddy child trip. And then, it's much harder, at least for me. Jimmy does a better job of it, and I just told him, and actually this was through the Know Thyself, was I need to spend more time. We spend a lot of time together, but we talk about this all the time. Our kids act differently if they're the star of the show.
Yeah.
If they are the star of mommy's show for that day. And I have a lot less, or I don't have, it's like I don't intentionally make time for the one-on-one time where Jimmy does a better job of it. So that is definitely a goal of mine once a month. And that came out of the Know Thy was intentional one-on-one time. And it could just be, going to dinner or like a lunch, or where we're actually having a conversation with each other, and they can share what they want to share. They could be goofy or whatever, because a sibling dynamic is real.
Yeah.
It is real. And they default. And I see that. I'm one of 5 kids.
Yeah.
I see that even within my sibling, dynamic with my parents. I spend a lot more one-on-two time with my parents because I live closer to them. But, I think that's definitely a goal of mine.
So you've already done those.
I've done all 3.
times.
So our youngest is 7, and this past year we went to Florida my son and I went to Florida, and it's a simple, like ours have always been just easy Southwest flights where we pick somewhere that is nonstop, direct, easy access. You get into an Uber or rent a car, and there's something to do at the other end. I picked 7 because they say it's the age of reason for people, for kids. And at 7, kids are amazingly developed by then already.
Yeah.
They're 7 years old. They know a lot already about the world. They are in many ways who they are meant to be in the world. You just got to draw it out of them. They, I think their personalities have somewhat developed by then. This is 2nd grade. And that's what we've noticed, at least. Like, I think of our oldest daughter now, like when she was 7, we kind of knew who she was. And she's the same person she was then. You know what I mean? It just gets massaged and changed over time through different phases and whatnot. But and I also remember, I think his aim was actually 7, but that kid happened to be like 8, the one that went to Zanzibar. We just remember it being a super young age. And we're like, wow,
whoa,
you're going across.
I hope you remember this.
And it was like they had to take 3 flights or something to go to this remote place to do
because
scuba
we had to
diving.
take 3 flights, so they definitely had to take 3 flights.
Yes, because they lived in the East Coast. But that's been a huge blessing, I think. And it's time, I would say, more than resource, because you could do it at different levels. You can do a camping trip, a road trip, and it can be one night. It doesn't have to be anything extravagant. But I think investing that time is harder than you think. Just carving it out.
We like doing one-on-one trips with the kids to Getaway House.
Yeah.
Have you guys been there?
That's wonderful.
I
I love those tiny homes.
Yeah,
Those are great.
I know. So you talked about your siblings. I know that you have a really amazing relationship with your siblings now. What do you think your parents did to cultivate that? Because that's like one of my big sources of anxiety now is like, I really want my kids to be like best friends when they're adults. And so I'm always like, y'all are going to be friends. And they're like, no, we're not. I'm like, I need to find a better way to convince you guys to be friends. So what do you think your parents did? And what are you guys doing now?
My siblings and I talk about this all the time.
Because it's fascinating. I see the pictures on social media. I'm like, you guys have such a sweet relationship.
We're very close.
Y'all are
very
best
close.
friends.
They really are my best friends. And we ask my parents that all the time, and they said, I don't know. It was just so chaotic because they had 5 of us in 5.5 years. There were no multiples.
Yeah.
So we were built-in besties, and we were creative with each other. I think, bottom line, we spent intentional time, vacation with each other. And even in the summer.
When y'all were living under the same roof, you mean?
Under the same roof. Yeah. We would go on vacation together for the entire summer. All 7 of us. I can't even imagine the chaos that took. But, the chaos together time is what we still talk about. We have very, very fond memories. And, did we fight? Absolutely. But then the beauty of having multiple children is you fight with one kid, you have other allies. You build allyship with,
Interesting.
so
Lord of the
Factions,
that we just spent a lot of time together. And my parents, aside from our after school activities, didn't overplan our lives. And I think that's what we're trying to do with our kids, because it builds in that natural playtime, and they're each other's first best friends. And we see this now, and hopefully it won't change, but they love being around each other. And on these one-on-one trips, like Jimmy will take, I think the last one was Jordan. The girls genuinely miss Jordan. So I think it's also good to make sure that, there's intentional time together, but there's also intentional time apart. So they have time to miss each other. You know what I mean? So I think it's the family bonding time where they're not always with their friends or at play dates all the time. That is a very important part of their socialization. But if that's overpowering the family time, because it's so finite, right? Then they may not choose to be around each other when they become adults. And, I asked my parents that, and that's what they said. It's, well, first of all, we didn't have time to play one-on-one with you kids because it's just so crazy. But we just found crazy things that we would do with each other. And then now we make it, and, we have family vacations, like with my siblings and now our significant others annually.
With all the kids and
No, they do siblings trips.
Yes.
Adults.
Just
with,
adults.
but with Jimmy and
Yes.
Okay.
With Jimmy. Yeah. With our significant others. Yeah. And that's 10 people.
Yeah.
So, and we went to Iceland and we went to Paso Robles. So it's like, we all love to try. And I think our parents instilled that level of love of adventure and experiences from the get-go. And that's, obviously you have to have the resources to do that later in life, but it's not that we have to do it. We actively choose to want to do it because we like being around each other. And our parents, they don't take credit for it, but it has a lot to do with the fact that they felt that it was very important to have that time as a family without anyone else, just that, your immediate family to be together and know how to have fun together.
That's amazing.
It's very unique, I would say. You don't see it often, right? I think another really small element is they shared a room. The girls were in a room and the boys were in a room. They had a big house, but literally only had 3 bedrooms. And so, I mean, when a small thing about us and our kids is they share a bathroom. It's a Jack and Jill. And then we built our house, so we could have put another bathroom in there, but we said no. The boy, this is going to be the boys' room. This is the girls' room. There's a Jack and Jill. So 3 of them, they have it in between, and it's not big. It's just 2 rooms and a Jack and Jill. And I think little things like, I think of a lot of the homes, the way they're structured right now, the kids are in a different wing. Everybody has their own private bathtub and shower. And, it's like a lot of space and a separate playroom for the kids. So we really only have like one family room. So you kind of have to gravitate around that space and be around each other. And that's right offset from their bedroom, just little things like that, where I think that really encourages and somewhat forces community and socialization. So, because otherwise it's so easy for the kids just to cocoon and do their own thing in some other wing of the house. You never see them.
It's like an open workspace.
And really co-working.
You mentioned that.
It is.
My parents' house that we grew up in was literally like communal space.
The whole thing was just crazy, right?
It's like the house. There's 5 kids, right? We had our own individual cubicles. We all had to study in our cubicle.
Straight line,
If I had a photo of it, I would show it to you because your minds are probably like, what in the world?
So being together was way more fun than that.
We had to internally negotiate because we all played piano. So we had to practice. And the piano was right there.
No piano room.
Like, don't got the space. That's where the piano is going to go. So y'all have to figure out, whoever's going to practice piano is going to have, and this is before noise eliminating headphones, right? So we just had to tune out the crazy. But you're absolutely right. And our girls, they ask all the time, can we have our own room? No. My mommy had 2 sisters. We not only did we have to share bathroom, we had to share a bedroom, and then now it's hard for us to even sleep alone because we're so used to just being with at least one human in the room. So I think it's the negotiation and conversations that you have in a sibling dynamic that could help you form that teamwork, and negotiation in the
Yeah.
future.
What do you guys do when they fight?
Well, we tried to have them resolve it themselves because, especially with our 7-year-old and even my middle child. I was just telling Jimmy this morning, I had to have a conversation with my eldest, but they hold each other accountable.
What does that look like? What does that sound like?
Tattletaling.
Oh.
So the beauty of having multiple children where one is really going to call you out, it helps the parents because you always
You've got like insider knowledge. You know
Yeah,
what's
yeah.
going on.
More eyes and ears.
Yeah, the nest cam, if you will, the built-in nest cam. So a lot of it will be, a sibling saying, "Hey, you shouldn't be doing that," which honestly helps us. But they fight, obviously, but it's short. They don't,
Yeah.
at least now.
Yeah.
Ask us back when they're teenagers, and this might be different. But it's fleeting where they become, maybe it's the dynamic of having 2 siblings versus 1, where you can divert your energy and have this third party, person that provides, you're at fault, Lila, not you, Livia. So, I don't know, what would you say? I can't really.
Well, yeah, I think one small practical thing we do every Sunday evening, we meet, and there's a little bit of that's a recap of the week prior, where we also dole out incentive-based allowances, basically. And there are deductions involved and stuff like that. And then recently I've been...
I want to see the spreadsheet.
Exactly. They remember for each other, oh, you got 25 cents off for that.
Oh, and they'll record it. Because we have this like dry erase calendar with like notes, and then our eldest will record it.
So, I mean, honestly, there's a little bit of a public shaming aspect. It's not about the money per se, but it's like, ooh, you got, remember what you did then? And then I had this idea of sort of doing surprise incentives where if they've contributed in a way that nobody was looking, but somebody noticed, then they could get a surprise incentive. But we meet, and then we also, so there's recap, but then there's also forward looking for the subsequent week, and who's doing well, you got volleyball practice, who's picking up. And this stemmed from a string of au pairs that we had that lived inside our home when the kids were really young. We had this sort of chaotic period when all the kids were essentially 5 or under, and even 7 and under. It was all very crazy. But we don't have an au pair anymore. It's just us, but we do that, and we still meet. And I think it's a nice practice for them also to kind of plan out, kind of regroup, get ready for the week ahead. And so they somewhat know, oh, Jordan has martial arts on Wednesday, and they can kind of, keep tabs. So we do that. I think that's been helpful.
Yeah, because we feel that it's important for them to know what they're responsible for. That we are not a walking Outlook calendar for them. So they need to know what uniform to pack for what sport on what day for what practice. Because if they're going to want to do these things, they have to do it themselves. And same thing, they get free breakfast and lunch at school. If you want to bring your lunch, please
pack it
do.
yourself.
Pack it yourself. We are not doing that for you. So, it teaches them that sense of, okay, I have to do this. Is it worth it for me to wake up extra early to, make lunch or whatever. But I forgot about the public shaming.
It works.
You could see the disappointment in their faces too. Like, oh, yes, I did do that. And now I'm, a quarter less of what my weekly allowance should be.
Tell us about some difficult moments in your relationship or your marriage, and like what you guys did to overcome it. Like, what are some, or if not like one of the most difficult, like what are some common sources of like tension or fighting?
When we were talking, there's this quote from Anna Karenina, which is a famous Russian novel. It basically says, all happy families are alike, but each unhappy family is unhappy in its own way, essentially. Have you heard of that quote? And so for us, it's on the happy side, there's just like Maslow's hierarchy, where it's like certain things that you need health, you need some financial stability, you need communication, mutual trust. But on the flip side, some of the things that have caused strain, and it's different for everybody, but we've gone through some pretty rough periods where I would say it's tough on any marriage, where we built a house together. Tough, not easy. And when I say built a house, there's different ways to build a home, but we bought the lot, hired an architect, picked every single color under the sun. I mean, it was
GC.
I was a
Would
GC.
not recommend doing that again.
It was nuts. It was just nuts, right? And like,
Yeah.
you're like managing 20, 30 trades, very stressful. But we did that. This is all pre-kids. Lisa supported me when I ran for public office. And that was an intense period. This is like stuff that marriages can be, you can die on a vine on these things, right? I mean, really challenging because it's just because of everything that's involved there, win or lose. And then Lisa's pursuing a doctorate in her 40s with 3 kids. Like, this is just really challenging stuff, full-time job and all that. So I think that those are some of our challenging moments, but I think for us, the key is to try to keep the lines of communication open and having avenues to communicate, whether that be the quick walk daily or the coffee chats. I think that if you don't create the avenue for the conversation or the communication, it won't happen.
Yeah.
Because communicating is the root of a lot of problems. I think just like don't talk, and then you suddenly start clamming up, and everyone has their own lives, and you're drifting further apart, and all this stuff. And so we try to create open avenues where we almost force and draw that out, particularly during these more challenging moments. But the moments can be different for every family, because we've been on the sidelines and seen others suffer through betrayal or addiction. There's financial issues. There's different issues that people deal with, but having the open line of communication and just working really hard through it, I think is critical.
Yeah. I think it goes back to, we want to be with each other when we're empty nesters, if we have the privilege, if we're blessed enough to live the life that, at least our grandparents have lived, and we want to be each other's life partner. And if we're not making, we've had tough conversations, and a lot of it is around like schedules, who's going to bear the burden of, you talk, it's just that mental tax around scheduling, and he drives a lot of it, and, could we outsource some of the stuff? Absolutely. And there are moments where I wish that we would, but I go back to, that's just, at the end of the day, we'd rather spend the dollars elsewhere. So how can we recommunicate and recalibrate where we spend our time and resources in order to, get through this really tough time? When he brought up the election, not only was he going through the election, but I was in my second year of the doctoral program, which is probably the hardest. And then we look back on it, and there's like many micro experiences, again, our lives in 5-year right? Like building the house, we got through that, and we're still married. There's every period where we're always tested, but it's that intentionality of, okay, we're gonna get through this, but we have to communicate through it, and taking that intentional time. So we talked about the micro ways that we do it on the walks and coffees. But every single year, we take a trip, just the two of us, a minimum of one trip. And pre-COVID, it was large international trips to a new country that we've never been to. And then during COVID, I don't know, what do? We went to more domestic trips, we also had the
weekend trips.
the luxury of getting married on a long holiday weekend. So we got married on Memorial Day weekend. So we always try to plan our big anniversary trip with the two of us around our anniversary. So it's like, okay, I know our anniversary is coming up on a big holiday weekend. This is going to be the time that we're gonna take. So it's something to look forward to. And during that time, you don't have all the noise. You don't have the kids. You're not worried about, okay, the kids need to be fed. What activities are gonna have? You just focus on each other. So we've done that in the entire 20 plus years we've been together, and we still continue to do that.
So, it sounds like you guys really, really support each other on each other's ambitions. So how do you do that? And then secondly, how do you balance your ambitions and make sure that your professional ambitions serve your life plan?
Wow, that's a great question. I think that it's not always 50-50, and I think that at different phases you're going to have to give more than you take and vice versa. And, I think about like when I was considering a run at public office, something that I personally had an interest in for some time. When I brought it up to Lisa, I was like kind of a little bit nervous. Cause like, but she said, oh, absolutely. Just, you should do it. Like no hesitation, and then she had to maybe cover in certain areas during that phase. Yeah. And then now that that's over, and I know that she's heavy in her dissertation, I'm, I'm handling the family calendar. I'm trying to take the load off. I'm putting, the laundry, whatever I can do to ease and alleviate any of that mental and or physical household burden, which is tremendous for a lot of people where both parents work outside the home. So I think we really try to ebb and flow with the seasons. And on the ambition front, something that I struggle with that a lot personally. And I have tried to put my family at the center of everything. And you know how they say, don't put the big rocks in first and then pour the sand where it can slip in between. The rock, you put the sand in first, there's no way you're going to jam that rock back in the. And so for me, like that's been really big. And personally, in my upbringing, my parents were too busy working and they've divorced, but to really, they were just trying to survive and kind of make a life for us. And we were kind of a little bit, latchkey type kids. And so I always told myself, well, I don't really want that. And I don't care where I went to school or what I have or what I've accomplished. If I don't have family at the center, which is the ultimate luxury in some ways, because then none of the other stuff ultimately matters. I don't care if I'm CEO of the biggest company ever, right? Yeah. So I've really tried to do that. But by doing that, I think you always feel like you're leaving something on the table. But for me, it's like, well, what's the means to the end? Like what else would you want? And I think, and I'm like, okay, well, I can make more money, and then that would be more stressful. I have a bigger house and I pay more taxes, less time. And I'm like, oh, I'm back where I started. Like there's a parable of a Mexican fisherman, but it kind of goes through that thing. So I've really tried to put that at the very dead center to then be able to say no to a bunch of other stuff and say, well, what fits into the thing that I really want to accomplish first and foremost. But I think it's a big thing we struggle with.
Yeah. And I think with the two of us, we try not to commit to big things at the same time. And so sometimes it's rock, paper, scissors situation. And, because we want to make sure that the two of us and our family are the center of our lives, but it's also not our whole lives, right? So I think the key to, we just want to live a joyful, happy, fulfilling life. And how can we do that? Well, it goes back to know thyself, right? So knowing that, we need to be cared for individually and understand what makes us tick, what drives us, because once you lose that sense of motivation to strive for something that is fulfilling to you, then how do you even think about what's fulfilling for your family? Right. And so I think we were intentional in that way. And then also we've been together for a while, and he went to grad school, I was working. I went to grad school, he was working. We didn't do it at the same time. Sometimes it would have been better than we'd just be done. Like
a couple of miserable years and then it's like,
and then it's over with. But that just was not sustainable, at least for the two of us, because we also wanted to make sure that we were financially stable and supporting each other through some of the, the school and the work and, as we were getting promoted and taking on bigger careers. And I think, at least for me, I think about my career, what I do in the community, how I care for myself and my own well-being and for my family, it intersects. And if the intersection wasn't there, I don't know if I would still be doing all the things, because what brings me joy and fulfillment happens to be in different facets of my life and other areas of my life. But they do have a really strong connection with each other. And I feel blessed. And even, stuff that I do professionally, Jimmy's a part of that. So I think where we chose to live, where we put in our roots for our family, personally and professionally and community engagement wise, is very intentional. So it goes back to that intentionality.
Yeah. Can you guys tell us about your decade dream that you guys came up with in Know Thyself?
I have changed mine.
Oh, nice.
Since then. But
Oh, you have? Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Yes. Well, I said $10 million of passive income, half of which is donated. So for a long time, I have been really obsessed, if you will, on financial independence, retire early, which is a kind of a movement called FIRE, financial independence, retire early. So, and that doesn't mean that you just end up sitting on a couch and just do nothing, but it creates financial independence to then empower and spend time with family, or even continue working if that's what you desire, or reinvest or do other things. And so part of our ability to spend an extended amount of time away this summer also is by setting some groundwork and foundation beforehand to then enable the time and the money and the privilege and all the stuff to then do that, you know. So I think a lot of things come out of it, but that was mine. Decade dream.
What do you like, the donation piece? What are your causes that pull at your heartstrings that you think you'll contribute to?
Oh, great question.
I would love to hear this too.
Well,
I think I have an idea, but
we have so many, but education is big. Social justice and empowering equity in allowing people, individuals to just really be able to pursue and live their best lives, you know. Unfortunately, because of circumstances and societal and a lot of things that we won't get into, people sometimes get held back and they can't reach their own individual best potential. So I really like causes like that and things that bring out leadership development and civic engagement in people.
Awesome. Thanks for sharing. What about yours?
Well, I can tell you what I did have.
Yeah.
Oh,
and
yeah.
then how it's changed. So mine was, I take a lot of photos.
Yeah.
And I'm really big on storytelling. So my decade dream was to do a photo journal.
Oh, yeah.
An annual photo journal for the next 10 years. And so I'm still going to do that because I feel like it's important. But that's, when I think about the bigger picture, it goes back to like life in synergy. So I've been thinking about this a lot because I get this question a lot. You're pursuing your doctorate, you're about to graduate. What are you doing it for? Because a lot of people do it because they need it for their next job.
Right.
For me, probably because I work at a institution of higher learning. And I believe in continuous learning. A lot of it was because I wanted to do it. And it's paid for. So, which is very nice. Now, if I had to shell out, thousands of dollars, I may not have done this, right? So the next 10 years, I want to be able to define what that next phase of my career will be. That will still give me that sense of, fulfillment and synergies in my personal life and the work that I get to do in the community. And I don't see that outside of SMU, to be completely honest, but what does that look like for Dr. Tran? So I don't know what.
Got a nice ring.
Yet,
Right.
Does Jimmy have to
Mr.
start calling
and
you
Dr.
that?
Right? Dr. and Mr. Tran.
Yeah, Dr. and Mr.
That's awesome. Okay, before we wrap up, one piece of advice for young married couples or a younger Lisa and Jimmy, what would you have told when you guys were newly married? What's that one piece of advice that you wish you had?
Ooh, you go first.
Oh my God. And I'm going to go back to the advice that was given to me. Whoever you choose as your life partner is a big decision. And knowing that person is going to, at least for us, I can definitely speak for me, that person is going to be that number one in your life. And I would say you need to remember that, especially if you end up having children or it gets you through all these life transitions, big, huge transitions. If you put that person, it's not that job, but you put that person, up there with the decision that you're trying to make, whether it's to go to grad school or take this big promotion. You made this life decision. you have to bring that person along.
Yeah.
And it's not going to be easy because it's way easier making that decision for yourself. But I think that would be my word of advice. Your family starts with the life partner you choose to be your life partner.
Yeah. Love that.
Well, a happy wife makes a happy life. No, I think that figuring out what your life partner needs and requires to be their best self, and then being able to feed into that and nurture it, encourage it, etc. And then conversely, figure out what just really sucks the life out of them, like really they dread, and then being able to alleviate that or maybe take some of that off, And I think what happens is sometimes it's actually the reverse, where what destroys people is like the thing that really, is just like grinding teeth for them. And then the other person is actually like pushing in on that, like really doing the reverse, which is like then butting them head to head, So, and it's different for everybody. And you should know best because you're their life partner, right? You should know what brings out the best in them and see if you can feed that and encourage that.
Yeah. I love that. Thank you so much.
Yes.
Anything you guys want to add before we wrap up?
No,
Thank
thank you
you.
for the time.
Yeah.
Yes,
Thanks
thank you.
so much
It's
for
been awesome.
sharing. It was
Insightful for
amazing.
me.
Yeah.
Thanks for the platform that you've built and all the work that you guys
Yeah.
are doing. It's great.
Exactly.
All right.
Thanks.
Thanks.
For tuning in to Empowered Living. I hope today's conversation sparked some inspiration and gave you tools to live more intentionally in your family, work, and life. If you enjoyed our episode today, be sure to subscribe so you never miss an inspiring story or actionable takeaway. And if you know someone who would love this episode, share it with them, because living an intentional life is better when we do it together. Until next time, remember, the life you want doesn't happen by chance. It happens by choice. Let's keep creating it one step at a time.